Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 52 of the Art of Business English. My name is Andrew Ambrosius, and very happy today because it is our 1 year anniversary here at the Art of Business English podcast. So today, basically, I'm going to be dedicating this podcast to answering a few questions I've got from some of my listeners. So basically, I'm going to be starting with, I've got three questions I want to answer today. One is about pronunciation from one of my fans, Alejandro, and I've got another question about the present perfect from Judith, and I've got one more question, if I have time, from Mohammed. Okay, so let's have a quick look then at the first one, and it's a great question from Alejandro. It's what's the 20% of advice that you would give that would give me 80% of the result for better pronunciation? So Alejandro was asking about the 20-80 rule, no? So basically, what is something that I can do with only 20% effort that will maximize the result? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my best to answer Alejandro in this episode and explain to him what he can do to improve his pronunciation. I have spoken to Alejandro and he has quite good pronunciation, so we'll see how we go today. But for those of you who struggle with English pronunciation, then this will be quite interesting and I'm sure you'll get some value out of it. Okay, so what you need to understand, firstly, especially if you're a Spanish speaker, is that English, we do not pronounce all the letters of a word, okay? Most people, especially if you're Spanish, when you pronounce a word or you read out or you spell out a word in Spanish, it's quite simple, the pronunciation, because you only need to know a few rules, whereas in English you need to know other rules. You can't, how can I put it? You can't just say the word. You can't pronounce a word, with each letter. Okay. For example, if we look at the word program, okay. In American spelling, it's Program, program. But in British spelling, it's Programme. Okay, so if you pronounce that as if you were Spanish, you would say programe, okay, or programe, and obviously that would sound really bad. Okay, so it's important that you understand that you cannot spell out all the letters of a word. Okay, I mean, if it's a simple word like dog or cat, it's quite simple. But once we get more syllables and it becomes a bit more complex, then you're going to have less probabilities of getting the pronunciation correct. So then I guess you're asking me, okay, well, if I can't spell out or pronounce every letter of the word, then what can I do to improve my pronunciation? Well, the first thing, and bear with me because if you've never heard this before, it's going to sound a little strange. But the first thing you're going to need to learn is what is known in English as schwa. Schwa, yeah. What is schwa? You must be thinking, God. Well, schwa is basically the most common sound in English as well. So it's something you should know, and it is the neutra. Okay, so it's a neutral sound, and the sound is like this. Okay, so and the reason why you need to know it, as I said, is because it is the most common sound. And it is used in so many different ways in English. So my recommendation, if you want to get better at pronunciation, 20% effort for 80% of gain, would be to learn and understand the schwa. So let me explain the schwa for you then. So as you know, it's a neutra, so it's a neutral sound. It's formed just by relaxing your throat, and it's formed sort of here at the back of your throat, in the back of your mouth, the beginning of your throat, and you just let the sound come out. Your jaw is relaxed, okay? So you just go okay? And we use that, or the schwa, we use the schwa with many vowels. So as you know, in English, the vowels are A, E, I, O, U. But as you will also know, the vowels are pronounced differently depending if they are, which word they're in or where they're placed in a word. So it could be A or A or A. Okay, so you've got different ways to pronounce just A on its own. Okay, so it's not the same always as we pronounce it in the alphabet. So you need to know the vowels. You need to know the different sounds. You need to know the schwa. Okay, so the first thing is learn to pronounce the schwa effectively, and then understand how schwa is used with vowels in words. And there are many, many examples. Let me start with some. Okay, I'll give you some examples. Basically, a really simple word would be cortar. Okay, cortar in Spanish cortar in English is to cut. Okay, if you're a native Spanish speaker, you would probably, the first time you see the word cut, you'd probably say cut. Okay, because it's the-u-te. So oh yeah, it's cut. Okay, it's not cut, it's cut. Okay, so you can see that the U sound here is actually being made or formed as a neutral sound, as a neutra, or the schwa sound. So it's cut. Okay, so you're forming the neutra on the vowel, and it's making it cut instead of kut. Okay, so that's a really simple example, and it happens in many, many words. For example, comfortable. All of the words that end in able, able, if they end in able, then they are heavily dependent on the neutra or the schwa sound. So it's not comfortable, it's comfortable. K, C-O, so you can see the first O, C-O, k, comfortable. So the O, okay, is neutra, the first O, and the A is a strong neutra, so it's comfortable. It's not comfortable, okay? Responsible, R. The R, the first E vowel, R, responsible. It's not responsible. It's not responsible, okay? Unless you're American, maybe you'd say responsible. But in British English, we would say R, responsible. Okay, so again, there are differences in pronunciation depending on where you are located geographically, okay? And even differences within the country. For example, in the north, it would be different in certain countries from the south. So you need to take everything, with a pinch of salt, because it will depend on where you're living and who you're talking to. I mean, if you're talking to someone who's Scottish, they're speaking English, but their accent would be very strong. So again, pronunciation is also dependent heavily on regional dialects and regional influences, okay? So back to the schwa. So you've got cut, you've got responsible, you've got comfortable, okay? Another word, for example, tomorrow, tomorrow. It's not tomorrow, it's tomorrow, okay? So you can see I'm using the schwa to really soften that sound. Why else is schwa also important? Well, because it is used to link. And many languages have linking forms or linking structures. And the schwa is used heavily in English to help us link words together. So let me give you an example. You don't say to, maybe if you're American, you'd say to, but in British English, we definitely say t. Okay, so for example, I want to go to the beach. So we wouldn't say I want to go to the beach. We would say I want to go. Okay, so to has a weak form, which is to go. Okay, that's a linking to. Okay, we also use the articles. So not a cat or a cat, it's a cat, a cat. Okay, so you'd use the neutra in articles as well. You could use it for the article the. I mean, the has a weak form. The, if you're American, you might say the dog or the. But in English, British English, we'd probably say the dog, the dog. So it's not the, or it's the. Okay, so you're using this article in a quite soft way, and we can also use it with. It's also common with things like is. For example, if we look at is, it is a dog, we would link it together. We would say it's a. So it is a dog. It's a dog. It's a. Okay, so these sounds help us naturally link and flow words together. And that's why it's often difficult to understand native people who speak English. What is important to note, though, is that you really need to forget about trying to understand everything, because a lot of words in English are neutra. So, we even use neutra for the auxiliary verbs do and does. We don't say, do you? We say, dear. Do you want a coffee? For example, do you want a coffee is, do you want a coffee? So if you hear you and want and coffee, and there's intonation, you know that that person's asking you a question, even though you only heard dear, do you want a coffee? And want is wanna. Okay, so you can see where we've linked want with wanna. There's many more lessons here, and I'll get into them. But you can see here that if you understand just the main verb and the main noun, want coffee, then you understand that the person's asking you if you want a coffee. And the point I'm trying to make here is that, with Spanish, you need to understand practically every single word in a sentence for it to make sense. Whereas in English, you probably only really need to understand 50 to 60% of a sentence to understand the general meaning. So it's important for people to understand or appreciate that they don't need to understand every single word. They should stop trying to focus on every single word, because a lot of words are articles or auxiliaries, and they're neutra. Okay, so then it's just irrelevant. It doesn't take away from the overall meaning. So in English, because we're using the neutra with these articles and these auxiliary verbs, we're helping us to link together or words to form sentences, but they're not really having much sound. They don't really have a sound. They're So if you're worried that you don't understand everything, don't worry, because as long as you understand the overall meaning of a conversation, you can follow it, okay? What people do is they try and understand or listen for every single word, and then they get lost. They get stuck way back in the conversation, and the conversation has progressed, and they find it really difficult to follow. So try and avoid this mania, okay? This obsession with trying to understand every single word, because as I said, not all words are pronounced, okay? So just to recap, the schwa is la neutra. We use it for articles. We use it for in words with vowels, okay? So A, E, I, O, U. We use it to link words together, and we can use it with auxiliary verbs like do or does, okay? And what's also important to note is because we link things together in English, we also avoid sounds. So let's look at how we link things together. Now, this is going to be quite easy for Spanish speakers, because you do have the similar sound in Spanish. So when we link things together in English, okay, there's another tip for pronunciation. We have a linking y and a linking w, okay? What do I mean by that? Well, we link things together with a y or w sound. There's two forms, okay? So do you want a coffee? Yeah, do you want a coffee? Okay, that's a linking y, okay? And 2 eggs or 3 eggs, yeah or w, okay? So you can see these sounds I'm making. 2 eggs, w, 3 eggs, 3 eggs, 2 eggs, 3 eggs, 2 eggs, 3 eggs. So this is how we can link. This is the type of sounds we use to link things together. And it's very important that you appreciate this sound as well, because it's used instead of things like T and D and K. Okay, so sounds like D, K, T, they're quite abrasive. They're quite restrictive. Okay, so if I say, do you want a coffee? I have to physically stop the pronunciation or the flow of my pronunciation to form the T sound. So instead of forming the T sound, I'll just form a linking Y sound. Do you wanna, or ya, okay? Do you want coffee? And I'm actually avoiding using the T completely, okay? The T becomes a Y sound or a linking W sound. So do you want coffee? Do you want a coffee? Okay? So it's very important that we understand that we often avoid sounds that do not help us link, okay? All right, so those sounds are T's, K's, okay? Things like that. All right, so that is pretty much a quick overview of the schwa sound, the neutra, linking words and yurts. What else can I give you as a 20% bonus to give you 80% of the benefit. Let me have a quick think. Okay, so another tip for pronunciation for you great listeners out there. You will need to do the following to improve your pronunciation, and it's going to be a bit strange. You should, where possible, spend 5 minutes a day reading out loud in voz alta. Okay, if you read out loud, you are externalizing a lot of the sounds that normally when you're reading you internalize. Okay, and that will also help you to improve your pronunciation. And if possible, if you can read with a teacher, if you do have an English teacher or you go to English class, get the teacher to make the students read out loud. Okay, and then if they read out loud, the teacher will be able to correct the student's pronunciation. And this over time has a great effect. It allows you to start appreciating where you're making mistakes. Okay, that's the first thing. And secondly, you learn the sounds because they're being vocalized. Okay, so I do this all the time with my students. I make them read a reading out loud. I correct their pronunciation religiously. And they start to learn that, like this is the schwa, okay, like discussion, not discussion, discussion, okay? Atrapar, caught, okay? It's caught, not caught, okay? What else? There's just so many words. Yep, there you go, another one. The neutra is often used with nouns as well, so proper nouns. For example, with people's names, okay, that's another tip. In English, we don't really say Peter, okay? Peter. No, we say Peter, Peter. So you can see that the last sound of this noun is ER, Peter. But we don't say Peter, we say Peter, okay? It's the same with many nouns that end in ER. We would not say father, we would say father, mother, sister, brother, okay? So the last sound of these nouns is a neutra. So, how many other things can I explain? Well, I don't know, I think that's about it. No, that's like 20%. That's quite a lot of information. So my advice is to learn the schwa sound, start trying to use it as a way to link words together and also to pronounce words or vowels in words correctly. And the most important thing is that you are aware of it, because over time you'll start to adopt it. If you try and force the schwa, it will sound unnatural, so I don't recommend that either. And secondly, we've learned this linking wort and yurt sound, okay, which is very important. We've understood that the things that are neutra or schwa are articles, auxiliary verbs, and vowels in words, and that lots of nouns that end in er end in the schwa sound. Okay, so that's all I want to say about the pronunciation. Then I'm going to move on now to the next question, which is a grammar question. Okay, I've got some grammar questions. So let's quickly just look at this one. It says, it's from Judith. She said, I have a question about the present perfect. She says that she uses it wrong, even though she studied it, okay? And she feels that she understands the grammar, but when she speaks, she doesn't use it confidently, or she feels that she's not using it correctly. Now, I completely understand, Judith, because when you are a native Spanish speaker, the present perfect in theory is quite simple, because it's a literal translation. Like, you would say, what would you say? Esta mañana he ido a trabajar. Okay, this morning I have gone to work. So it's quite simple, no? Like, esta mañana, this morning, he ido, I have gone a trabajar, or al trabajo, he ido a trabajar. So it's, I have gone to work. So, in theory, you would think that it's very simple, but unfortunately in practice, it's not that simple. There are some very complete, absolute similarities, and you can translate literally. However, the most common mistakes I'm going to tell you now. For example, firstly, in English, this morning, you would not say, I have gone to work this morning. You would use the simple past. You would say, I went to work this morning. When the action in English is finished, it's finished. It's simple past. Whereas in Spanish, you would use he ido, he hablado, this structure all day. So today, I'm going to say, hoy he hablado con Xavi. Hoy he hablado con Marta. So in English, we wouldn't say this morning or today I have spoken to Chabi or today I've spoken to Marta. We would say today I spoke using the simple past. I spoke to Marta or I spoke to Chabi. So that's the first thing. Very important that you don't use the present perfect all day today. Okay, use the simple past. We would only use the present perfect for very recent things like I have just spoken to Chavi or I have just spoken to Marta. And secondly, this is the biggest mistake I see, and I'm just going to quickly share this with you because I think it's important. The present perfect in English is used to include time from the past up to the present. It's impossible to talk about something that you have done in the past and has a connection with the present using the simple present. So let me give an example because it's a bit confusing. In Spanish, you can say, yo trabajo aquí desde hace 2 años. Okay? Yo trabajo aquí desde hace 2 años. This structure in English must be the present perfect. Why? You can't use the present simple. Even though you work at that company now, yo trabajo aquí, yes, I work here, that is fine. But what you're trying to do with this structure is include all of the past 2 years up to the present. It's impossible to include the past up to the present using the present simple. Okay, so yo trabajo aquí desde hace 2 años. Desde is used with the present perfect in English because it's since. Okay, so since is from a fixed point. So I have been working here, I have worked here, yo he trabajado aquí desde 2016. Okay, so I have worked here since 2016. That's a fixed point. That works with the present perfect because you've included the action that started in 2016. It hasn't finished. It's continued all the way up to now, and it's still relevant now. Okay. Secondly, you can't say desde hace because hace is ago, and in English, when we say ago, it's with the simple past. So I worked here 2 years ago means hace 2 años que trabajé allí. I worked, simple past, action finished. So the biggest problem I see with the present perfect is this structure. And even people who are quite advanced speakers, they make this mistake. They'll say, I work here since 2 years ago. Or they say, I work here for 2 years. Incorrect. You can't say that. You need to here use the present perfect. You need to say, yo he trabajado aquí durante 2 años. And even though in Spanish it sounds like the action has finished, in English it hasn't finished. Okay, you would say, I have worked here for 2 years and I still or will continue to work here now and into the present. Okay, so really that's probably the most common mistake I see with the present perfect. If you want to talk about things that started in the past, have continued over time up to the present, you must use the present perfect. Okay, so that is my advice for you, Judith, when using the present perfect. Okay, so guys, I don't know if I have enough time for the last question. I'll just quickly see what I can do for Mohammed. Basically, Mohammed says that his English is okay and that he feels that he wants to communicate with foreigners, but he always feels like some form of limitation, and even that he's always making grammatical errors and he's not sure if they're right. He really wants to improve his English, but he finds it really hard, and he's watched a lot of videos in English and reads many books in English, but it's hard for him to speak or write English accurately. So, I mean, reading is incredibly important. I encourage that a lot. Watching movies or watching things in English is great for your listening comprehension and to a certain degree improving your knowledge of vocabulary and expressions. However, the only way at the end of the day that you can improve your speaking is by speaking with people, and preferably native people where possible, or people who have a really high or advanced level of English. And secondly, the writing aspect. It's really difficult to improve your writing unless you write a lot. Okay, so unfortunately with writing, you're going to need to write things and have someone correct them for you. Just to put it into perspective, Mohammed, when I started writing emails in Spanish, it took me a year to write them comfortably. And my wife used to correct them for me. And it was very frustrating because, I wanted to send, in your native language, you send an email, it's for work, you're busy. And I would like literally want to send an email quickly to a potential customer or to a client or to one of my colleagues. And before I sent out an important email, I had to have it checked every single time because of all the mistakes I was making. And it took, this constant revision over time for me to learn all the mistakes and the silly things that I was doing in Spanish. So unfortunately with your writing, the secret is to write and try and have someone correct it. You can also interact with native people, but you need to adopt their expressions and try and bring them and assimilate them into your vocabulary. But you're going to have to make sure you do that correctly. I've seen on many, many, many occasions people in companies who have adopted expressions from other people's emails, which they think they're using correctly. And at the end of the day, they're absolutely wrong. And the context is completely wrong as well. So you need to be careful when you're using other people's or you're taking expressions from other people's emails. You need to make sure that you fully got them in the right context. So my recommendation is to try and have a pen pal or try and find someone in another country maybe who's native speaker who wants to learn Spanish or whatever language your native language is. And then you can have a pen pal relationship where they send you comments or their emails in your native language, and then you send them your emails in English, and that way you could work together, especially if you wanted to do it free and if you wanted to help each other. If you wanted to do it paying, then I would recommend getting a personal coach or trainer that can help you. They wouldn't even need to be in your country. They could be anywhere else in the world because you're sending email. So my advice for writing is to write and to write a lot and have someone correct it for you. And with the speaking, again, it's a pretty similar situation. You need to speak to people and if possible have them correct you. But with speaking, the most important thing is to speak, be understood, and don't worry too much about your errors and your mistakes, because as long as people understand you, you'll gain confidence and you'll improve over time. Okay, so that's my advice for this episode, this happy birthday episode. I'm pretty excited and pretty proud that we've made it to episode 52. And I'm really thankful and grateful for all of my listeners and those people who have who are joining and subscribing every single month. It's great to see the Art of Business English growing little by little every single week and every single month. Makes me feel proud and happy, and it's a pleasure to be here to help you guys and to serve my listeners. And if you are interested in improving your English, well, you know where to come, you know where to go. Got a presentation workshop coming up next week if you are listening to this podcast in November of 2018. And of course, we've got other programs that we can help you with. So if you are interested, and we've also got the Art of Business English membership site where you get access to forum, weekly a weekly coaching call with a small group of people, and all the transcripts and quizzes. But apart from that, guys, it's a pleasure having you. I really love helping and serving my listeners and my fans, and I really appreciate having you all here. So if you need anything, just send me an email, let me know, and I'll be more than happy to answer your questions in the future. So have a great week, take care, and thanks again. Bye for now.